Good morning.
Good morning. It's December. It's February 13th, the day before Valentine's
That's
Day.
right.
And our talk today is entitled Optimize Your Optimism.
Yeah, that was Judith's title. She came up with it. She thought it was clever. Actually, it really
Spirit
is.
gave it to me. God gave it to me.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start by reading a reading written by Ernest Holmes, an affirmative prayer. And it's entitled, I Accept My Good. And the Bible quote is from Ecclesiastes 9:7, and it says, Go thy way, eat thy bread with joy, and drink thy wine with a merry heart, for God now accepteth thy works. I love that one. I love that one. So Ernest says, God speaks when we listen. God is there when we open the door. And when we listen, there is a response from something greater than ourselves. That is the infinite person with a capital P, the limitless possibility with a capital P, meaning names for God. God speaks wherever and whenever we listen to the inner voice. There is a presence in the universe that is personal to us. It is the spirit of which we are the direct individualizations. Whenever we create an idea, it is because a demand has been made upon the mind of God that is incarnated in us. We mentally measure out what we shall receive in terms of the limitations of our previous experiences, but little by little, we see that we can grow, and experience adds to experience until we accumulate an ever greater possibility. Each one of us is a direct inlet and direct outlet to God. The infinite personalness residing within us is never limited by or separated from us except by the degree of our own ignorance. Our inner voice is always instantly available to guide and direct us through the vicissitudes of living. And so now is the affirmative prayer, and you're welcome to say that with me. I listen with complete faith and trust to the voice of love guiding me today. I accept the abundant good that flows easily and freely to me. In return, I am loving and generous to all others, knowing that we are joined in spirit. My whole mind is open to the divine influx of joy, love, wisdom, and guidance. My life prospers.
Beautiful.
And so it is.
Before we get rolling, I've heard a couple of people on who aren't muted. So if you just came on, please mute yourself so we won't hear you in the background.
Thank you. And then at the end of this recorded talk, then we'll open a chat room and would love to hear from you.
Yes, and then we talk sometimes a half an hour or more.
And so optimizing our optimism. There's just so many places we can go with that. Did you want to start? Or do you want me to start?
Oh, I just came to
I'm
watch.
giving you a choice.
I like to watch. So, well, the first thing I was thinking about when you came up with the title was looking at our environment, the environment of our office, our home, our wherever we are, and asking ourselves, how can I optimize this environment so that the environment reflects what I want to see and what I want to have more of in my life? If you have an office, can you hang a picture? Can you move something into your office that feels to you in a way that it appeals to you, that opens the consciousness, opens your sense of good and sense of well-being? I like to sit on a couch in our living room and look around and say, what works and what doesn't work? What is it that supports, optimizes the beauty that I want to see more of? We have a choice. We can look for beauty, we can create beauty, or we can look for things that are not beautiful and we can lament them, and we often do. But what I see it very often is people are not optimizing their good, they're actually optimizing their negativity. That is, they're giving lots of attention, lots of time, and lots of conversation to it. I remember years ago, and I don't
So,
know,
so they're optimizing their attention on what's not right in
Right,
their opinion
right.
with their life, or what they don't have, or
So if you look at your environment, the question you can ask yourself is, what would I like to see more of? And think about how you could include more of that as opposed to what don't I like. And you can look for what you don't like, but be careful. There's a trap in the looking for what you don't like, that you can do that in every area of your life. You can do that with people that you meet, with the conditions around you. And I know people, as I'm sure you do, that the first thing that they say wherever they are is what they don't like. I wish this were not true. There's too much traffic. I don't like that seat. It's too hot, it's too cold, or whatever. And so I think the first mission is look at your world through the eyes of abundance and an attitude of gratitude, and ask yourself, what would I like to see more of? What do I enjoy? What am I savoring the taste of? How can I put a light on that? Years ago, when I had an art gallery, one of the things that I noticed was it wasn't enough to hang a piece of work on the wall. It was important to have it lit properly.
Mhm.
And I think consciousness is the light we bring to the things that we're looking at. And consciousness is a light that, when we turn it on, allows us to see more clearly and more fully in all of its beauty. Lately, I've been printing, because I'm an artist. I've been printing on a metallic paper, and the metallic paper has a tooth to it that's highly reflective. And so I can print something and I can show it to Judith, and she says, "That's really pretty." I said, "Let me show it to you in the light." And I turn the light on. All of a sudden, it just illumines. What I'd ask you to do with the people that you love and care about is bring them into the light. Allow the light to shine on them, and see what it is that you haven't seen, and celebrate it and recognize it. And it's especially true during this particular time of the year we call Valentine's Day, which is a time to celebrate the good that you see, not what's wrong or what's missing or what you have struggled through or struggled with.
What he's referring to is I straightened up our condo this week because we had company.
I would never tell
We
anybody
rarely
that.
have company here.
Right.
It's, we live in Florida. Everybody meets outside. They meet out by the pool. They meet outside by the cookout station, or you're always going out to eat or something. People rarely invite you into their homes, and we rarely do either. So, but I had company coming over to visit, so that's an opportunity to look around and see what's cluttered and what can be put away. And I usually don't mind clutter. I have high tolerance for clutter. But it was, once I cleared everything away and had it all nice and neat, oh, this feels good. It not only looks good, it feels good. So we need to pay attention to that and do that more for ourselves.
I told Judith, I said, we've got somebody coming over sometime next week again.
Weekly now. We'll have
weekly.
someone coming over.
I know we do. And I don't know what day, and I don't know who, but I know they're coming. So
that does optimize the way you feel. But we want to talk about more than that today.
Not
But
much.
tomorrow being Valentine's Day, one of our people who attends weekly has shared with us, I hope you don't mind, I'm sure she doesn't, but she is a widow. And tomorrow on Valentine's Day, she's having a gathering of widows to her home. And it sounds like she's cooking some things for it today.
Garlic.
And that's what a wonderful idea. And they're bringing a picture of themselves and their husband, and we'll share a sweet love story or romantic story. And I thought, that is really optimizing your optimism. In a day when many people widows could be feeling alone and sad and missing their husband, instead they can get together and share and talk about it and remember the good times and the sweet times and the romantic times, because they're always with us. Those are always with us. And it depends on what we're focusing on. Are we focusing on the loss? Or are we focusing on the love? And so those are always an option. And that's why I wanted to talk about optimizing our optimization. Because in our teaching, we believe, I've got a wonderful quote about exactly what we believe, and it's from Ernest Holmes. And he says, there is a universal mind, spirit, intelligence that is the origin of everything. It is first cause. It is God. This universal life and energy finds an outlet through everything that lives. There is one energy back of all that is energized. This energy is in everything. There is one spirit back of all expression. And it goes on in another passage saying God is an infinite presence and an indwelling reality, indwelling. The silent whisperings of this inner presence come to each of us as divine revelation, an inner communion of the individual spirit with the oversoul, that vast and invisible presence in which we live, move, and have our being. Now, I consider that very optimistic, to know that there is an infinite presence that indwells us. So we can always access it. We can always listen to it. We can always get guidance from it when we can be still enough to listen. And it's very loving. It's always there to love you. And so anytime you're feeling alone or sad, uninspired, you just need to turn out the outer world and go within, because it is always there with you. And I think that's an important thing to remember at this time when many of us are spending a lot of time alone.
Yeah, we been experiencing some decent cool weather, which has really been nice. So the air conditioner hasn't been on very much. It hasn't been on anywhere near as often as it's usually on. But what I noticed is that the air conditioner is always set to come on demand. All you have to do is set the thermostat. And the fact that it's been cool enough that we haven't needed it doesn't mean it's not there. And so what I would ask you to do is to set your spiritual thermostat. Set it for the temperature that you want to have it come on, and recognize that it's always there, it's always present. And you don't have to feel the breeze of spirit in order to know it's there. You simply have to look at the wall and say, the thermostat is set, it's always operating. It's operating even when it doesn't appear to be operating, which is what our instrument is talking about. He's saying it's ever present. Everybody that has a religious background has a different name for what they call infinite spirit. I have very close friends who call that spirit Jesus. Some call it Buddha, some call it a lot of different things, and some have misnamed it, but they haven't misnamed the intention. They haven't misnamed.
A lot of people call it Allah.
Yeah, yes, more people call it Allah than probably I think almost anything else. But what's important is we not get lost in the naming of it, but that we recognize the power of it and the presence of it in our lives all the time, and that we allow that indwelling spirit to be the thing we're looking for and looking from. Which we can do. I'm working now more hours than I did with some pretty seriously mentally ill people. And what I have to constantly be doing for myself is to see their inner light, to see their inner good, and to recognize that. And I was working with a person the other day, and she was going on about how difficult life has been for her for so many years. And I said, and then she stopped and she said, "You keep telling me that I have value, and that how do you see that? How do you see my good?" And so I asked her, I said, "Have you ever done anything that you felt good about?" She said, "Oh, yes." I said, "Well, describe it to me." And she described something that she felt good about. And I said, "How do you feel describing that to me?" And she said, "I feel good." I said, "So maybe you need to spend more time describing your own good to yourself, the good experiences you've had." And she said, "Yeah, that's something I could do." I think we all need to be able to do that, myself included. And the saddest thing is that the people that I work with that seem to be the worst off are often the same ways that I am, are often the same way we all are, only to the degree that they're often missing the mark, which is that divine intelligence is operating in and through all of us all of the time.
Well, that is a key point that I wanted to share and make, and that is that how do we optimize our optimism? By monitoring, listen to our own thinking. What are we saying to ourselves? And ask ourselves, how am I feeling when I hear myself say those things to me? And what could I change it to? We are often the ones depressing ourselves by our thoughts. So in our teaching, we say, change your thinking and change your life. And it's absolutely true. You can choose to focus on the negative, or what you're afraid of usually, or what terrible thing happened in the past, or what you want to happen and what good things have happened in the past.
You can change, and I've talked about this before, you can change one word in your self-talk and change everything. I hadn't worked for over a year, which meant I was working at home and loving it. And then I had to go back to work because it just made sense to do that. And for the first few months, I would find myself saying, oh, I've got to go to work now. And I changed that to, I get to go to work now. And when I changed it from got to get to, I changed it from being powerless to having power, to seeing the good and having myself at choice in that decision rather than an effect.
And they're going to put money into my checking account every 2 weeks. How about that? That's a pretty nice thing.
Not a bad thing, right? I get to cash in those checks, right? Rather than I've got to. So just in your own vocabulary, every time you're facing something that's negative, you can say I've got to, or you can say I get to.
Yeah, that's a huge, huge shift.
But whatever you do that changes the point of view you have about how you're dealing with something, then that changes everything.
It does. It does. So I want to get back to this listening also, this still small voice that's always available to us. Ralph Waldo Emerson, he was the most famous writer up until pretty recently. And he was a profound metaphysician, and we consider him like the grandfather of our teaching. He had this to say, let us become silent that we may hear the whispers of the gods. There is guidance for each of us, and by lowly listening, we shall hear the right word. Ralph Waldo Emerson. Lowly listening, he means like, just quiet the chatter of your brilliant mind. Just try to be still and listen, because guidance is a wonderful thing. Hearing the right phrase, the right words can just be a wonderful way of optimizing your optimism. Can shift you from feeling sorry for yourself to just feeling really glad to be alive and glad to be here. At the very time when things that maybe what you were thinking were not so great for you, it's still, there's always a way of looking at it where you feel blessed and gifted instead of put upon or unfortunate. So one of the things that I realized is that our teaching is very good about teaching us how to change our thinking for the future, how to bring about what we'd like to have in our lives. And I'm teaching a class now, working with a book by Byron Katie called 1,000 Names for Joy. And I realized it's got some wonderful techniques for changing our thinking about things that happened to us in the past. Now, our teaching, his Centers for Spiritual Living, is that we should forgive any hurts in the past. Should listen to me shooting on myself, but for our own benefit, we'll want to forgive, and we'll want to not have any cherished resentments. Is the phrase. Don't have any resentments. So, and we teach not to judge. Do not judge.
Cherished resentments always have at their core that you're right.
Exactly. There's always judgment, and all of these. If you're judging that you were wrong, you're judging that somebody done you wrong, and something shouldn't have happened. And so Byron Katie has a wonderful technique. She calls it a turnaround, where you turn around your thinking. And it's in her book, Loving What Is. It's in the book, 1,000 Names for Joy. And it is a wonderful technique for shifting your attitude about your thinking about the past. So that I didn't even realize I was still carrying around some of that stuff with me until, as I was reading the book, I used it as an opportunity to turn something around where I was saying that shouldn't have happened. That person shouldn't have done that. That person shouldn't have hurt me or hurt others. And I realized, gosh, that person's been gone 34 years and I'm still shooting on him. They shouldn't have done that. And it's a way of turning that around to say, no, he should have done it because he did. That reality is God. God is reality. And so what a turnaround. What a way to optimize your optimism. It's just like a huge weight is off your shoulders when you can do that. So I encourage checking that out as a way to alter your thinking about the past.
or whatever strategy or whatever technique or whatever idea you have for how you might do that is worth employing, because if you keep seeing things the way you've been seeing it and make you miserable, you're going to continue to be miserable. When you see things through the light of possibility, through the light of infinite joy, the infinite good, when you see things as having value rather than not having value, you see the world differently. And the world becomes a different world for you, and it offers you different things. You know, how many of you, and I know I have, been with somebody who you couldn't wait to get away from because no matter what they said, it was negative. And the problem they were up against was they wanted to know why they couldn't be with more positive people in the world. We're in a more positive place. And you're thinking, God, do I not want to be with you? Because you're critical of everything. And so again, inviting the positive into your own experience and then looking for that elsewhere.
Exactly. And we have just a few minutes left. So I do want to talk a little bit about love.
Oh, yes.
And of course, I think the greatest love of all is the love of God or Spirit for us, that we can feel. We can actually feel it when we recognize its presence within us, but also our love of one another. There are lots of different kinds of love.
Yeah.
That spiritual love is called agape or agape. And the romantic love is called eros. We also have philios, brotherly love. And I understand the Greeks actually had 6 words for love. There's parental love.
Right. They had a lot of time.
They had a lot of loving going on. But nevertheless, one of my favorite poets is Rumi. He was a Sufi poet in the 1200s. And this is what he said about love. The minute I heard my first love story, I started looking for you, not knowing how blind that was. Lovers don't finally meet somewhere. They're in each other all along.
Yeah.
I love that. And Thomas Merton said, love is our true destiny. We do not find the meaning of life by ourselves alone. We find it with another. And last but not least, Lao Tzu, who was the ancient author of the Tao Te Ching, which is about the Tao is the way. It's called the way, but it also is another name for God, just the way of life. And he says, being deeply loved by someone gives you strength, while loving someone deeply gives you courage. I love that. And those of us who've been mothers, fathers know that, because when you love your child deeply, it does make you courageous sometimes. You have to be courageous sometimes in rescuing them, and sometimes you have to be courageous sometimes in countering their wishes.
Indeed, indeed.
So, anything else you'd like to add about
I was thinking
optimizing our optimism?
Thinking about the whole section on love, which is really interesting. You think of your first love, and the first time that you fell in love was probably something that only you knew about. And so it was an internal process, not an external process. I know when I drove by Sharon's house, and she was my first true love, that she didn't know it for quite a while. But I would ride by on my bicycle and I would whistle love letters in the sand. And I knew that
She
love,
would hear that through the windows.
she could hear it through the windows, I'm sure. And it was pitch correct, and I was a good whistler. So I rode my bicycle by her house 1,000 times and whistled love letters in the sand and felt love and kindness and joy. And she absolutely knew nothing about any of that. So love is an inside job first. And if it isn't inside, it really isn't going to be anywhere. You're going to have to be able to be aware of it, look for it, experience it, express it, invite it. And the other aside I have is that the other day I was out watching one of the giant iguanas that we have, which I've named Herman. And Herman was out again, and one of the folks that I work with came out, oh, I hate them. I hate them. I said, what do you hate about? I don't know. I just hate them. I said, what an interesting statement to make. I hate them. I said, could
so pretty and great.
I said, could you give Herman a chance? What do you mean, Herman? I said, his name is Herman. She said, how do you know? And I said, he told me. She said, this is a mental hospital, and you're telling me that he's talking to you? I said, listen to Herman. Remember, it's 150 years old. She said, how could he be that old? Well, she got distracted. She said, but these colors are really beautiful. I said, I know. And it's the orange is because he's dating right now. And when they start dating, they put on lots of makeup and he's got lots of orange. And before long, she was saying, he's really interesting. I said, I know. Do you still hate him? She said, well, I don't like him. So sometimes just looking at life through a different lens, giving it a name, playing with it, having fun with it can change the colors of a thing, can change the way it seems, the way it functions. And all of us can learn from that. So that's all I've got to say.
Great. Well, I thought of something along the way, but it's gone now. So we must have shared all we needed to share.
Yeah. It'll come back a little bit after we're done with the recording.
No doubt. So let's close with a final prayer. Let's go, and I invite you to go within with me into that connective place where we connect with all that is. We connect with God, we connect with love, we connect with one another, and know that all of life, every single bit of it,
Every breath
is beautiful and wonderful, and we are grateful for it. And as we're grateful for it, we allow ourselves to feel positive, to feel optimistic. And we see that life and where we are this moment is the very right place for us to be.
So we breathe it in. We breathe it in and we breathe deeply. And we let it out knowing that it will be replaced with an identical breath of equal quality and value. For we choose to breathe in love and light and joy. And we say yes to that. And we know that it is true.
We give thanks, we release, and together we say.
And so it is. Now, before we end the recording, we're going to talk about a very thing near and dear to our heart, which is that this ministry is a ministry that you can support if you would like to. And you can start by sending in your resources, your income, and you can do it by going to cslpalmbeaches.org. And we are grateful to receive your gift of love and time, and however you want to do that. You can go to our site, like I said, and that works.
We're going to do an affirmation of prosperity so that you can all say that along with us, whether you're sharing anything right now or not. But this is a good one for you to do all the time. So let's
For
say
yourself, yeah.
My investment today is made with the full realization that God is the source of my supply and returns it to me enriched and multiplied. Ah, great. I heard you sharing. That's great. And so we will end our recording now. I can't read it. That says pause.
No.